Ted Williams, the baseball legend who faced WW2 and proved heroes fight twice in the summer of 1941, the air around Fenway Park buzzed with anticipation, a symphony of cheers and laughter echoing through the bustling streets of Boston. But as baseball fans flocked to the stadium, their hearts racing with excitement, a darker undercurrent simmered beneath the surface. With news of war spreading across the globe, an unsettling question loomed over the city: what does it truly mean to be a hero? Ted Williams, the young and gifted baseball player known for his razor-sharp focus and fierce determination, stood at the precipice of his dreams. With a bat in hand, he embodied the hopes of many, his talent shining bright against the backdrop of America's pastime. The crowd roared as he stepped up to the plate, his eyes narrowing in concentration, heart pounding in rhythm with the chant of his name. He was on the cusp of greatness, a legend in the making. Yet, deep inside, a storm brewed, a conflict that threatened to tear him away from the diamond he loved. As the sun dipped low, painting the Boston skyline in hues of orange and gold, Ted's thoughts drifted beyond the cheers of the crowd. He could almost hear the distant rumble of war, the call of duty echoing in his mind. His best friend, Frank "Red" O'Connell, had already enlisted, brimming with enthusiasm, eager to serve. They had shared countless afternoons at the ballpark, dreams of glory and fame filling their conversations. But now, as the world faced a tumultuous upheaval, Ted felt the weight of responsibility pressing heavily upon his shoulders. "Hey, Ted!" Red called, his voice breaking through Ted's reverie. "You coming to the dugout or what? We've got a game to win." Ted turned, a smile breaking his serious demeanor. "Yeah, I'm coming, Red." Yet, as he made his way to the dugout, a gnawing doubt lingered in his mind. Was he destined to swing for the fences in a world where the stakes were far greater than baseball? Meanwhile, Samantha "Sam" Turner, a passionate sports reporter known for her tenacity, navigated the crowded streets, her notebook clutched tightly in her hand. The buzz of Fenway Park drew her closer, but it was not merely the allure of the game that captivated her, it was the man at the center of it all. Sam admired Ted not just for his athletic prowess, but for the integrity he brought to the sport. She dreamed of writing stories that would transcend the game, stories that would illuminate the human spirit, especially in times like these. As she approached the stadium, Sam caught a glimpse of Ted through the gate, his silhouette framed against the setting sun. She felt a rush of admiration mixed with anxiety. The world was shifting, and soon, she feared, the dreams they all held dear might be threatened by the war that was now looming ever closer. How could she capture the essence of a hero when the very definition seemed to be changing? The game unfolded with electric energy, but between pitches and home runs, Ted's mind wandered. The crack of the bat resonated in his ears, but so did the distant sound of sirens and the newsreels of war reporting atrocities that felt worlds away yet uncomfortably close. Even as he hit a home run, drawing wild cheers from the crowd, his heart felt heavy with uncertainty. How could he celebrate a victory when so many others were facing unimaginable horrors? Then came the moment that would change everything. During a break between innings, the announcer's voice crackled through the loudspeaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, it has been officially declared that the United States is entering World War II." The world paused, the crowd fell silent, and the air thickened with a sense of foreboding. The cheers died down, replaced by whispers of disbelief and concern. Ted's heart sank as he caught Red's eye, the reality of their lives shifting dramatically. In that moment, Ted found himself grappling with a profound dilemma. Should he stay and pursue his passion for baseball, a sport that had brought joy to millions? Or should he answer the call of his country, leaving behind everything he had worked for? The gravity of the decision weighed on him. This was not just about baseball, it was about duty, sacrifice, and the essence of heroism. As the sun set behind the city, casting long shadows over Fenway Park, Ted stood on the edge of a precipice, his future uncertain. The cheers of the crowd faded into the background as he wrestled with his thoughts. What did it mean to be a hero? Was it the man who swung the bat, or was it the one who stood up to fight for freedom? The lines blurred, and he felt the tension coil within him, a tug-of-war between two worlds that he loved fiercely. With the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders, Ted took a deep breath and looked towards the sky. The decisions he was about to make would not only define his life but would also echo through the lives of those he cherished. And as he contemplated his next move, he wondered if the true measure of a hero was not simply in the victories they achieved on the field, but in the battles they chose to fight beyond it. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the military training camp in Texas, where Ted Williams found himself grappling with a reality far removed from the vibrant green fields of Fenway Park. The transition from the roar of baseball crowds to the staccato cadence of drill sergeants was jarring. The familiar scent of freshly cut grass was replaced by the acrid smell of sweat and gunpowder. Here, there were no cheers, only the harsh bark of orders and the relentless grind of physical endurance. Ted stood in formation with his fellow soldiers, the weight of his uniform heavy on his shoulders, both physically and emotionally. The camaraderie he had shared with his teammates felt like a distant memory. Instead, he now stood shoulder to shoulder with men he had only just met, their faces a mix of determination and uncertainty. Each day began before dawn, the air thick with humidity and the promise of sweat-soaked training sessions. Ted was no stranger to hard work. He had spent countless hours honing his skills for baseball, but this was different. This was a test of will and resilience unlike any he had ever faced. The rigorous drills and exercises were grueling. Ted found himself gasping for breath during the long runs, his body protesting against the unfamiliar demands. He watched as Red, ever the enthusiastic spirit, thrived in this environment, bounding ahead with an energy that made Ted feel sluggish by comparison. Red was eager, almost reckless in his enthusiasm for the fight ahead, while Ted felt an internal tug-of-war between duty and passion. The thought of leaving behind his baseball legacy weighed heavily on him, a burden he carried in silence. After a particularly taxing day of training, Ted returned to the barracks, his muscles aching and his mind racing. He plopped down on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, trying to silence the doubts that echoed in his head. It was then that he felt the familiar crinkle of paper beneath his pillow. A letter from Sam. He opened it eagerly, her words a lifeline to the world he had temporarily left behind. "Dear Ted," it began, her handwriting neat and confident. "I've been following your journey with great admiration. I cannot imagine the challenges you are facing, but I hope you remember that your heart is as fierce as your swing. You have the power to inspire, both on the field and off. The world is watching you, and your actions now will echo in history." As he read her words, a flicker of warmth ignited in his chest. Sam had always seen more in him than just a baseball player. She believed in his ability to make a difference. Their correspondence had become a refuge for him, a place where he could express his fears and hopes without judgment. In his response, Ted poured out his thoughts, reflecting on the conflict that consumed him. "Sam, I'm struggling. I thought signing up would feel like the right choice, but every day I feel the weight of what I left behind. I miss the game, the thrill of hitting a home run, the roar of the crowd. I worry that I'll come back a different man, or worse, that I won't come back at all." As weeks turned into months, the letters between Ted and Sam painted a vivid picture of their evolving relationship. Each letter was a thread that wove them closer together, even as they faced their own battles. Sam's determination to carve out her path in journalism mirrored Ted's fight to embrace his new reality. She faced skepticism as a woman in a male-dominated field, but her passion for storytelling shone through. Ted admired her tenacity, even as he wished he could be there to support her physically. Back at the camp, the tension between Ted and Red began to surface. Red was adamant about fighting on the front lines, a sentiment that left Ted feeling uneasy. The two friends had always shared a bond forged in their love for baseball, but now that bond felt strained under the weight of their diverging paths. One evening, while they were washing up after an exhausting day, Red broached the subject that had been simmering between them. "You know, Ted, it's not just about baseball anymore. He gestured around them, this is our chance to do something bigger. You can't just stand by and let this war happen without stepping up." Ted felt his stomach twist. "I know that, Red. It's just, I'm not sure I'm ready to leave everything behind. What if I'm not the same person when I come back? What if baseball doesn't want me anymore?" "Come on," Red replied, his voice full of enthusiasm. "You're Ted Williams. You'll always be a legend. But you can't be a legend if you don't take the leap. You've got to fight for your country, for the people who can't fight for themselves. Their conversation hung in the air, heavy with unspoken words. Ted wanted to share his fears, but he also knew Red's determination came from a place of honor. They were at a crossroads, and he felt the weight of their friendship tested by the harsh realities of war. As the days wore on, Ted leaned into his training, finding solace in the rhythm of physical exertion. He pushed himself harder, reminding himself of the discipline he had learned on the baseball field. He envisioned the pitch, the swing, the connection of bat meeting ball. It fueled his resolve. But even as he found moments of clarity in the grueling routine, the conflict within him loomed large. In the quiet moments of his training, Ted found himself reflecting on Sam's letter again. She had urged him to think about how he could serve others, both as a soldier and a player. Her words echoed in his mind, a reminder that his choices extended beyond himself. He began to wonder if he could inspire other soldiers, just as he had inspired fans on the baseball field. Perhaps he could capture the spirit of camaraderie that made teams great and bring that to the battlefield. That night, he sat down to write to Sam once more. I'm beginning to see a different side of this fight, Sam. It's not just about me anymore. It's about all of us. I want to find a way to bring hope to those around me, to lift spirits as I once did on the field. I hope I can be that kind of hero, someone who makes a difference. He folded the letter carefully, a sense of purpose washing over him. He wasn't just a baseball player, he was part of something larger, a movement of men and women fighting for freedom. But as he sealed the envelope, a shadow of doubt lingered. Would he still be able to connect with that spirit after all this was over? As the weeks turned into months, Ted's resolve only grew stronger. He trained with renewed vigor, and even as he faced the physical challenges of military life, he found strength in the memories of the game he loved. Each day, he pushed himself harder, not just for his own sake but for the men around him who looked up to him as a leader. He could sense the change in Red, too. The initial excitement of joining the military began to wear thin for his friend. The reality of war loomed large, and with it, the weight of their choices. As Ted watched Red grapple with his own fears, he felt the bond between them shift once more, each grappling with their own definitions of bravery and heroism. The days at the camp were long and the nights often sleepless, but through it all, Ted found solace in his letters with Sam. They became his anchor, a reminder of the world he was fighting to protect. With each letter, he shared his struggles, his dreams, and the flickering hope that he could navigate this new path with integrity. As he penned his next letter, he felt a surge of gratitude for her unwavering support. I hope you know how much your words mean to me. You remind me that there's strength in vulnerability and that being a hero isn't just about the grand gestures, it's about being true to oneself. In that moment, Ted understood that while he was fighting a war on the outside, he was also engaged in a battle within. The conflict was far from over, and he felt the weight of his choices pressing down on him. Yet, amid the struggle, he found a flicker of hope, an understanding that he could redefine what it meant to be a hero, both on the battlefield and in life. As this chapter of his journey unfolded, Ted's thoughts drifted back to Fenway Park, the cheers of the crowd, and the thrill of the game. He realized that while he might be far from the diamond, the spirit of baseball would always be with him, a reminder that heroes fight not just in the name of duty, but for the love of the game and the people they cherish. If you're enjoying Ted's journey and want to see how he navigates the complexities of war, friendship, and heroism, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for the next chapter as Ted faces the ultimate test of courage and discovers what it truly means to be a hero. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the patchy, uneven terrain of the Pacific battlefield. The air was thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder and the distant echoes of chaos. Ted Williams stood at the forefront of his unit, his brow furrowed, heart racing. It was 1944, and the world he once knew, a world of baseball, cheers, and the comfort of Fenway Park, felt like a distant memory, drowned by the urgency of war. The cacophony of gunfire erupted like thunder, snapping Ted back into the present. He ducked instinctively, his instincts honed from years of hitting curveballs now adapting to the brutal cadence of combat. His mind raced with thoughts of his mother, of Sam, and of Red, whose laughter had once filled the spaces between the crack of a bat and the roar of fans. He had thought he was ready for this moment, ready to be a hero. But nothing could prepare him for the chaos unfolding before him. "Get down," someone screamed, but it was too late. The enemy had ambushed them from the underbrush, and Ted's unit was caught in a crossfire. Bullets whizzed past like angry hornets, and the ground seemed to tremble beneath Ted's feet. The adrenaline surged, a primal instinct kicking in as he crouched behind a fallen log, breathing heavily, and scanning for any sign of movement. "Williams! We need to flank left," shouted Sergeant Morgan, his voice barely audible over the din. Ted nodded, though his heart sank. The last thing he wanted was to move away from the safety of cover. He stole a glance at his fellow soldiers, their faces a mix of fear and determination. Were they ready to die for something they barely understood? As they scrambled to regroup, Ted's mind flickered back to the letters he had exchanged with Sam. Her words had encouraged him to think beyond the confines of baseball, to embrace the idea that heroism lay not in accolades but in sacrifice. But how could he truly embody that when faced with such raw violence? "Red!" Ted's voice broke through the crackle of gunfire. He had lost sight of his friend, and panic clawed at his chest. Frank "Red" O'Connell was not just a fellow soldier, he was Ted's anchor, his confidant. But the chaos of war had swallowed him whole, and now he was nowhere to be found. "Williams!" Red's voice rang out, barely above the noise. Ted's heart lurched, and without thinking, he sprang from his cover, his instincts overpowering his fear. He dashed across the open ground, the world narrowing to a single focus, finding Red. The battlefield was a hellscape, smoke billowed, cries of the wounded pierced the air, and the ground was littered with debris. Ted's heart thundered in his ears as he sprinted towards where he had last seen Red. Then he spotted him, lying prone behind a boulder, blood seeping from a wound in his side. "Red!" Ted shouted, rushing to his friend's side. The sight of Red, pale and gasping for breath, sent a shudder through Ted's entire being. "Stay with me, buddy. We're going to get you out of here." Red's eyes fluttered open, a weak smile breaking through the pain. "Teddy, always knew you'd come for me. Just hold on," Ted urged, tearing a strip from his own shirt to apply pressure to the wound. The reality of their situation crashed down on him. A moment of bravery was nothing without the will to act. Around them, the battle raged on, and the stakes had never been higher. "Williams! Get back!" Sergeant Morgan yelled, his voice laced with urgency. Ted's instincts screamed at him to retreat, but he couldn't leave Red behind. He felt a surge of desperation, a need to protect his friend at all costs. "I can't leave him!" Ted shouted back, the raw emotion spilling over. The weight of the world pressed down, and every soldier who had ever taken the field for their country flashed through his mind. This wasn't just a game anymore, this was life and death, choices that defined who they were and who they would become. "Then let's move." Morgan's voice cut through the chaos. "We'll cover you." With a nod of determination, Ted hoisted Red onto his shoulder, a feat both physically and emotionally taxing. He felt the warmth of Red's blood seeping through his shirt, a visceral reminder of the fragility of life. The two of them were bonded by more than friendship now, they were entwined in the struggle for survival, each step away from the enemy a testament to their unwavering loyalty. As they stumbled back toward the safety of the remaining troops, Ted's heart raced with every step. He had never felt so alive and so terrified at once. The sounds of battle faded into a dull roar, and all he could think about was Red's life hanging in the balance. The moments stretched and contorted, each heartbeat echoing in his ears as he fought against the tide of despair. "We're going to be okay, Red. Just hold on," he murmured, though uncertainty gnawed at his insides. He was no longer just a baseball player, he was a soldier, a friend, a man faced with choices that could alter the course of their lives forever. They reached the makeshift medical tent, where medics scrambled to tend to the wounded. The chaos of war was palpable, and Ted felt as if he had stepped into a different world entirely. "Get him in here," a medic shouted, and Ted gently laid Red on the stretcher, the weight of his friend's life heavy on his shoulders. As the medics worked feverishly to stabilize Red, Ted stepped back, a whirlwind of emotions crashing over him. He had been prepared to fight for his country, but he had never anticipated the personal cost of that decision. He felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness, an urgency to understand what it truly meant to be a hero. Then came the twist that would alter everything. Williams. A voice broke through his thoughts, and Ted turned to see Sergeant Morgan approaching, his expression grave. "We've received orders for a counteroffensive. We need you back in the fight." "What?" Ted's heart raced. "I can't leave Red. Red will be taken care of. But if we don't move now, we'll lose everything. You know what's at stake." Ted's breath hitched. He felt torn, caught between duty and friendship. The reality was harsh and unforgiving. He had to make a choice, and it felt like the world was closing in on him. He looked back toward the medical tent, where Red lay, surrounded by medics. Was it right to abandon his friend? To return to the chaos that had almost cost them everything? But then he thought of the soldiers still out there, fighting for their lives, for their families, for a future that felt so uncertain. With a heavy heart, Ted nodded. "All right. I'm in." As they moved to regroup with the remaining unit, Ted felt the weight of his decision settle on him. He was stepping into the unknown, knowing that his actions could mean the difference between life and death, not just for himself but for the men he had grown to trust and depend upon. In that moment, Ted Williams understood that being a hero was not just about the glory of the game or the cheers of the crowd. It was about sacrifice, about fighting for those who could not fight for themselves, and about the brutal reality of war. He had faced his fears and made his choice, a choice that would resonate beyond the battlefield, and ultimately shape the legacy he would leave behind. As they moved toward the front lines, Ted felt a quiet resolve settle within him. He would fight not just for himself, but for Red, for Sam, and for every soldier who had ever picked up a bat or a rifle. In the heart of battle, he found clarity. Heroes fight not just for the accolades, but for the ones they love. And at that moment, he was ready to prove it. As the summer of 1946 unfolded, the streets of Boston began to pulse with a renewed vigor, much like the hearts of its residents who had weathered the storm of war. Fenway Park, the hallowed ground where Ted Williams had once dazzled fans with his extraordinary talent, was once again alive with fervor. But for Ted, returning to this beloved field felt different. The cheers of the crowd sounded like a distant echo, a reminder of everything he had endured, everything he had sacrificed. Ted stepped onto the field, bat in hand, yet his mind was filled with memories of the battlefields and the faces of his fallen comrades, especially Frank "Red" O'Connell. He had been through hell, but now he was back, determined to channel the lessons learned from the war into his game. The sun glistened off his uniform, but Ted felt the weight of his past pressing heavily on his shoulders. As he took his place at the plate, he glanced around the stadium. The familiar sights, the vibrant colors of the fans' jerseys, and the scent of fresh-cut grass stirred emotions within him. He felt a surge of gratitude for the chance to play again, but it was tinged with a profound sense of responsibility. This game was not just about baseball, it was about honoring those who had fought alongside him, who had given everything. The first pitch came hurtling towards him, but instead of the instinctual swing he had once relied on, Ted hesitated. He remembered the faces of the soldiers he had fought beside, the bonds formed in the chaos of combat, and the sacrifices made in the name of duty. With a newfound clarity, he swung with purpose, sending the ball soaring into the outfield. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Ted's heart was full for a different reason. He was playing for something much greater than himself. During the game, the camera panned across the crowd, capturing the emotional reactions of fans and family alike. Samantha Sam Turner, now a prominent journalist, stood in the press box, her heart swelling with pride. She had followed Ted's journey closely, documenting his evolution from a baseball star to a soldier and back again. In her articles, she had emphasized not just the return of the athlete, but the return of a man who had learned the true meaning of heroism. She knew that his story was one of resilience, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. As the game progressed, Ted's performance was fueled by the memories of his fallen comrades. Each run he scored, each play he made, was a tribute to Red and the countless others who had fought valiantly. The fans didn't just see a player, they witnessed a hero reborn, a man transformed by the trials he had faced. With every swing of the bat, he channeled the hope and courage he had found on the battlefield, and the crowd responded with thunderous applause. After the game, Ted stood at home plate, bat resting on his shoulder, as he looked out over the stadium. He raised his hand to silence the crowd, a gesture that caught everyone's attention. The cheers faded, and a hush fell over Fenway Park. With a steady voice, he began to speak. "Thank you all for being here today. I stand before you not just as a baseball player, but as a man who has learned that true heroism is found not only in the grand moments of glory on the field but also in the quiet acts of courage off of it. I dedicate this game to my friend Red and all the brave souls who fought for our freedom. They taught me that the battle doesn't end on the battlefield, it continues in our hearts and our communities." The crowd erupted once more, but this time, it was a roar of respect and admiration. Ted's heartfelt words resonated deeply, inspiring everyone present. He had transformed not just as a player but as a person who understood the complexities of sacrifice and duty. He embodied the essence of what it meant to be a hero in everyday life. As the sun began to set over Fenway Park, casting a golden glow across the field, Ted felt a sense of peace wash over him. The internal struggle that had once consumed him was finally laid to rest. He had chosen to honor his country and his passion, finding a way to intertwine the two. The hero he had been searching for had always existed within him, the war had merely helped him uncover it. As the fans filed out of the stadium, their hearts filled with stories of bravery and resilience, Ted knew his journey was far from over. He would continue to play the game he loved, but he would also dedicate his voice to advocating for veterans and those who had faced their own battles, whether on the field or in life. He had learned to fight not just for victory but for understanding, compassion, and community. And so, he turned to the camera, his eyes bright with determination. "To everyone watching, remember that heroism comes in many forms. It's in the small acts of kindness we extend to one another, in the courage to face our own battles, and in the strength to lift each other up." If you found inspiration in this story, I encourage you to reflect on your own definition of heroism. Share your thoughts in the comments below, like this video if it touched your heart, and subscribe for more stories of resilience and courage. Let's continue to honor those who fight every day, not just on battlefields, but in their everyday lives. With that, Ted stepped off the field, ready to embrace the future, proud to be a part of a community that understood the true meaning of heroism, a community that would stand together, both in victory and in the fight for a better tomorrow.